Hey guys, it's Jordan back today. Today I'm going to be talking about the possible Anthony Davis destinations for the trade. Now that the trade deadline is over today, that leaves the offseason with the possible destinations for Anthony Davis. This makes things very, very interesting because I think there are three teams that have a possible chance for Anthony Davis. Now, it's going to be one season, so that definitely changes things rather than 2 seasons. I think that takes a lot of teams out of the running. I think there are three teams with a chance because of their assets and because of chances of resigning after the one season. Now let's get into these three teams. I'm going to start with the team that I think is least likely to land Anthony Davis, and I think that team is the New York Knicks. Now the Knicks have some pretty decent assets as far as players, but their main asset, I think that is going to be huge for them, obviously, is their first round pick this year. Has a chance of being number one. You could be getting Zion. You could be getting RJ Barrett. But as long as their players go, as far as assets, they have Kevin Knox, decent scorer, possibly good defender, pretty good potential player. You don't really know what you're going to get with him right now. But as far as future potential goes, he's definitely not a bad player to have on your team and possibly develop. They also have Dennis Smith Jr., who they got from the Mavs this year. I'm pretty sure they'll be able to trade him in the offseason, but he also has very good potential. He's a good scoring point guard, put up good numbers on Dallas last year. Not having as good of a season this year, but obviously he hasn't played that much with the Knicks yet, so we'll see how he does with the Knicks. But he's a pretty good building block as well. Knicks wanted him in the draft. They took Frank Ntilikina instead. Don't know why they did that. I think Dennis Smith Jr. is way higher value than Frank does, but Frank's also a decent asset that they have. They could possibly trade to the Pelicans. Now, I think the Knicks are the least likely just because their assets aren't as good as the other two teams. The Knicks, they could sign Kevin Durant this offseason. They could also sign another max deal. So I think they'll give up the absolute farm for Anthony Davis in hopes that they can sign another two max players. They could possibly be looking at Kyrie, Durant, and Anthony Davis in New York. I don't want that to happen as a Celtics fan, but we will see. Knicks, once again, the Knicks are the third least likely team of landing Anthony Davis, in my opinion, but we shall see in the future. Let's move on to the second most likely team in this case to land Anthony Davis, and that is the Los Angeles Lakers. I think the Lakers are the second most likely to land Anthony Davis, just because of their want for him. Like, they'll literally give up their entire roster, as we saw before the trade deadline for Davis. Their assets aren't the greatest, in my opinion, but I think they can maybe work out with like a third team to try to get a better asset. But as far as player assets, they have Ingram, they have Ball, they have Kuzma, they have Hart. I don't love their assets. I don't think any of them really have star potential besides Ingram. And even with Ingram, he has a lot of things he's got to work with his game. The Kevin Durant comparisons when he was coming out are just not. He just doesn't have the ball handling. He doesn't have the high release. He doesn't have the quickness. He's got a lot of things to work on if he wants to become a star player. Ball, that wasn't high on coming out of the draft. Anyways, with his shot, his dad says he doesn't want him to play in New Orleans. So I don't even think that New Orleans would want him in that case. Things could always change, but that's what he's been saying. Kuzma, I don't really think he has such a high ceiling. He's a really good scorer. I just don't know if he's a winning player. He's not the greatest defender. That could also change. It's only a second season, so you can't jump too far ahead of things. But then you also have Josh Hart, who's, solid bench shooting guard, I think. He's not going to be much more than that. Could be a future starter, 3-and-D guy, but doesn't really have the D right now. He's an okay player. I don't think he's great, so that's really their assets. really. Not the greatest assets, but I just think their want for him puts them number 2 over the Knicks for me. Just because I think they would really go out and try to get a third team and give up the absolute farm to get a better asset than New Orleans would want. That's why I put them number 2. And now to number 1, I'm going to go with the Boston Celtics. They're my team. I'm not being a homer here. I think they're the most likely team that Davis lands on in the offseason. The biggest risk with them is he wasn't on their list to resign. So that's a very, very risky proposition for the Celtics, but I think they take it. Ainge is not afraid to take risks. It usually works out too. So I'm not worried of Ainge taking a risk here. Celtics, in my opinion, have the best assets as well. So that checks 2 boxes. They got Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Al Horford that they can use for salary match purposes. Hayward they can use for salary match purposes if they prefer him. They have Terry Rozier if they sign and trade him. They have Robert Williams if the Pelicans want him. They have 3 first-round picks going into this draft. Not the greatest picks, but a couple that are going to be in between 10 and 20 with the Memphis pick and the Kings pick. They also have the Clippers pick. So they have a lot of picks they can throw around. So like these the best assets. That leaves the one thing that might hold them back, which is, does Kyrie stay? Now I think Kyrie stays if Kyrie gets the promise that they'll give up the farm for Anthony Davis. And I think in turn this will make Anthony Davis want to stay with Kyrie. I don't know their personal relationship. I think that has a lot to do with what NBA stars do nowadays, unfortunately. But I think that those two together would be very, very, obviously a good team, but a very good fit with the pick and roll they can run. But obviously we'll see what happens. What I think will happen, obviously, is the Celtics. I just don't think Ainge is afraid, and I think they have the best assets to get it done. I think they purposely waited until the offseason because I think they want the Celtics, whatever package that Ainge promised them. If they wanted the Lakers deal, they would have taken the Lakers deal. The Lakers already offered them their entire roster, and they didn't take it. I'm sure the Knicks offered their first round pick. Knox, DSJ, Frank. I'm sure they offered all them in the trade deadline, but they didn't take it. And I think that is why the Celtics are going to be the team that gets Anthony Davis. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll be coming out with a lot more in the future. Please subscribe if you enjoyed it. You guys are the best. Thanks.